Introducing the new Volvo XC90 with 7-seat versatility, Google built-in, and advanced safety features for all your precious cargo. The new Volvo XC90, designed for life. Visit volvocars.com/US to learn more.
Brace the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
This summer, try the new Strato Frappuccino blended beverage at Starbucks. It's the classic blended iced coffee you know and love, now topped with a creamy layer of handcrafted brown sugar cold foam. Available for a limited time. Your Strato Frappuccino is ready at Starbucks.
Hey, it's Paris. You know I love sparkly things, right? Like stars. Duh. And thanks to Hilton and AutoCamp, I just slept under them. Picture me, serving looks by the fire outside my luxurious Airstream, making s'mores with the kids, while a national park is our backdrop. The great outdoors meets Hilton hospitality. That's hot. Explore all the new ways to stay at Hilton.com. Hilton for the stay.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Hello and welcome to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. We are so excited to bring you this show.
Our podcast is all about unraveling all of your favorite mysteries from the Assassin's Creed games. Each episode will be talking about a different topic in the Assassin's Creed universe. From Pieces of Eden, solar flares, and the Isu, to the Hidden Ones, the Order of Ancients, and of course, the Animus. We will seek to uncover it all.
So join us and maybe even take a leap of faith.
Shelby. You also know me as She Cup, and we are back with another episode. But first, I'm going to let my host introduce himself.
Hey, I am Austin, also known as Teacup, and I am here. I have finished Shadows, and I'm ready to talk about some more Assassin's Creed stuff.
That's right, and I have not finished Shadows. I think I've played about 7 hours of it. I will say the day that I was like, I'm going to play a lot of Shadows. I'm going to like all day, I'm going to play it. We had severe weather at our house and we lost power for about 6 hours. So that did not happen, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was unfortunate.
Yeah. But anyway, we're back with another episode and I'm going to let Austin tell us who we're talking about today.
Yeah, so we're going to stay more on the British Isles and we are going to talk about none other than probably what I think is one of the most famous writers in the world and probably one of the most influential people when it comes to the English language, and that is William Shakespeare.
Yes, I definitely agree. I think he is the most influential writer of all time, and truly because like there are so many sayings and quotes that come from him that are just like, it's just the English language now.
Mm-hmm. It would be like, Lin-Manuel Miranda, like making changes to how English is spoken.
Right. And I do think now is a good time to kind of like talk about just some of these idioms and phrases that do come from Shakespeare. because there are just so many. And if you're listening and you're like, there can't be that many. The reality is, yes, there can. Some of them are In a Pickle, Wild Goose Chase, Good Riddance, It's All Greek to Me, All That Glitters Is Not Gold, Love Is Blind. Apparently he came up with the word eyeball, which I didn't know. Be All End All, the word bedazzled is Shakespearean. Like Brave New World, Wear Your Heart on Your Sleeve. I don't know if I said Heart of Gold already, but like they're
Star-Crossed Lovers.
Star-Crossed Lovers, All the World's a Stage, Laughing Stock. Apparently Lonely is one too, which I didn't know that one either. Breaking the Ice. Like there are truly just so many words that you're like, especially if you are a native English speaker, things that you've never ever thought twice about where they come from.
Mm-hmm.
So that I do hope that helps illustrate just how influential this person is that we're talking about today.
And so I will also preface this of like, as influential as he is, we don't know a lot about the man outside of the plays that he wrote. I mean, we know a little bit about like who he married and other things like that, but there's not a lot that we know about him writing and say, I, William Shakespeare, believe this. And I think that this is part of being a creative and an art person. Like, he wants people to draw their conclusions from his work. So he's not going to say outright sometimes, oh, this is what I think, because he wants people to draw their own conclusions.
And I think that the best writers are the ones that kind of take that stance. I think that when you read books and plays and music and anything that's artistic, the ones that kind of beat you over the head with their point kind of come across as preachy, and it can be very irritating and very annoying. The best works are the ones that tell you a story and make some kind of moral point to you, and that's what Shakespeare does.
Yes. And so we're going to talk more about, we're going to talk about his plays to kind of gauge into his morality, and we're going to talk about some things that he does and just how influential this person is. So he is an English playwright and poet and actor. He lived from 1564 to 1616. He wrote 39 plays, 154 sonnets, and 3 long narrative poems. Like, this man wrote so much.
I mean, I think the sonnets, like 154 sonnets, like, okay, 154 is a lot, but like they're short, right?
Mm-hmm.
Almost 40 plays and 3 epic poems. Like, those are significant works.
Yes. And like, his plays are 5-act plays sometimes. Like, the tragedies are huge pieces of work that take hours to perform. Like, it's a big deal.
And also, I think it should be said that, like, this is not a person who lived to 100. This is not a person who had a career spanning, 7 decades. This is a person who lived to be 52 years old.
Mm-hmm.
That's not, by today's standards, that's young.
Yeah.
So he probably had, 3 decades where he was actually productive as a writer.
Mm-hmm.
So this number in that short amount of time is crazy.
It's pretty impressive. This is important. Shakespeare iconically wrote in iambic pentameter, which is if something you think something, oh, that sounds Old English, even though Shakespeare didn't write in Old English. But like, oh, that sounds old-timey. It sounds like really, posh or something like that. It's probably iambic pentameter.
Yeah, and I do also just want to shout out to the Dragon Age fans out there, because I know there are some of y'all that are crossover fans of both of our shows. Solus is written entirely in iambic pentameter. That's why he sounds like that. That's why you think he's annoying. So just FYI.
Right. Also influential, and I will only speak for U.S. education just because that's how it is. I think it is nearly, if not completely impossible to go through U.S. public education and not read something of Shakespeare.
Yeah. I mean, I know we talked about this outside the show, but like we read multiple things from Shakespeare every year of my high school education, except for my junior year, because that was the year that English was focused on American literature. Every other year, we read at least one play from Shakespeare.
I read, I think, 5 total in high school because senior year was British literature, and so we read more than one. But I read Romeo and Juliet, Julius Caesar, I guess 4, Macbeth and Hamlet.
Yeah, we read all of those and The Merchant of Venice. And I think we read Midsummer Night's Dream as well.
I read Othello.
We didn't do that. The only one of the really big ones that we read was Hamlet. And that was my senior year. The other ones, the other plays, we did Romeo and Juliet freshman year, and then everything else was sophomore year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's important literature to English and to just the history of writing in the English language.
Right.
And I say that as a writer who is a person who is a writer for my job.
And I think that Shakespeare, as we talked about, helps standardize English grammar, spelling, and pronunciation. And so how we say words, how we spell words, how we structure sentences, he helped shape that. And I think that's really important. And I also think it's important to take, he has this influence, but he critiques the nobility in his plays. And that is a big stance. He does it in such of a way, as we talked about, like, he's not beating you over head with it, saying like, oh, the nobles are evil and doing all of this. He's more making you think about it. And he's making you think about, oh yeah, this is kind of corrupt and not okay. So yeah, so I think that's a good point to like branch into like his character. This is a person who is not really okay with the nobility and the monarchy doing whatever they want.
Yeah, absolutely. Which, I mean, that's going to be a major talking point when we get into Assassin versus Templar later.
I definitely agree. I thought this was really interesting, just given the time frame. His family was accused of being secretly Catholic, though he himself was a member of the Church of England. Though it is worth saying that when Henry VIII establishes the Church of England, he automatically puts every English citizen as a member of the Church of England. Like, it's not like America, we think about that, like, of having this kind of choice to be whatever you want and worship however you want. That's a huge founding principle of our country. That was not the case when Henry VIII established the Church of England.
Right, and I'm pretty sure in this time period, like, and I actually don't even know if this is something that still happens, but usually in a church that is, in a country that has a state church, that has a state religion, that, you know, like, as English people, we are part of the Church of England, like, you just get opted in when you're born. You can opt out, of course. You can be different, but, like, when you're born in England, at least in this time period, like, you're just automatically part of the Church of England unless you do something to say, no, actually I'm Catholic or whatever. So like most people were going to be a member of the Church of England just because they were opted in already.
Right. A lot of the evidence for his Catholic family is that his father would often miss church with the excuse of fearing the process of a debt, like the processing of a debt, meaning like he had to pay it. And that was a common excuse apparently used in the time of Catholics. And it's important to note that while Elizabeth in England is probably the most tolerant of the Tudors' rule of England when it comes to this Reformation and different beliefs, probably the most tolerant, but there were still people were really hostile to Catholics in England at this time.
Anybody who wasn't Church of England, really.
Yes. And so there was just a lot of speculation, but I think this goes to show that Shakespeare is living in a time, like we see this pop up, different groups with different names get this, people and countries do this to ostracize and make people other kind of things. You know, we've got Catholics in this period of England, we've got Jews and practitioners of Islam in the Spanish Inquisition. You have communists in America in the 50s and 60s. Like this kind of thing pops up of like these hidden people who are not really loyal to our country. And
yeah, it comes in waves, because like you can look back through history of like this happens, I mean, pretty frequently every 50 to 100 years. And I would argue there is absolutely the possibility that we're entering into another one, or already have been in another one right now in America.
Right.
So it's because, and the reality is it's easy to blame and scapegoat a group of people for all your problems, because it means you don't have to take accountability for them.
Yes, 100%. And I think that's a very apt analysis. And it's important to know that like Shakespeare lives in this time, but his plays reflect people having to take accountability for their actions. Like a lot of times his characters have to take accountability for the things that they do.
Like look at Macbeth, like look at Hamlet. Like they are flawed men who, I mean, one listens to his witchy wife, you know, and it ruins his life. Like, there's just absolutely a lot of that.
In Hamlet, he's letting his indecision and paranoia almost infigure this, that he treats this person that he's supposed to love, Ophelia, terribly, and she ends up taking her life.
Yep.
Like he has to deal with the consequences of those actions.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are a lot of historical speculations about his sexuality. We kind of talked about this in the, I forget which episode it was, but we talked about this recently with the King Richard episode. And just that there was not a lot of traction on these theories. And I also think that when you get further back, like the more like you go from like 500 years to the 16th, 15th, 14th century, it's hard to prescribe these modern notions onto a historical figure like that.
Yeah, I think once you get back into times where like people, generally most people, were not marrying for love, they're marrying for status or for, you know, money or for whatever reason. Once you get back into those eras, like we can't compare this to any of our kind of like modern marriages, because you know, at least in our world, most people marry for love. Most people. I don't want to say everybody, because like there are still arranged marriages out there. There are still people who marry for money, like absolutely. But more than like 200, 250 years ago, like that just wasn't happening the way it is now. And so we've got a complete fundamental shift of what marriage is and what it's for. And it's very difficult to compare that.
Yes, I 100% agree with that. And I also think it's important, like we have completely different views of the role of sex in general. Like typically, I mean, I don't want to say, typically we don't use sex as the kind of power wielding force that people, especially in the nobility, would have used it back then. I mean, even when you get back into the Roman Empire and the Greek Empire, like soldiers would utilize that to exert power and dominance over other people. And that you cannot compare that to a consensual, loving relationship.
Right. Absolutely. You just can't do it. And that's why I think it's really hard to even like make these comparisons for, you know, people who are from as long ago as Shakespeare was. So
Yes. The last kind of like conspiracy theory I want to talk about is probably the most robust and the most, I think, brought up, which is his question of authorship. It's a more modern conspiracy. It's a more modern critique. But there's a lot of things out there that he didn't actually write all the things that he wrote. He didn't write any of the things that he wrote. And he took credit from another noble, sometimes the Earl of Oxford, or Lord Byron is another one that comes up in that. And I found in that most scholars, from what I could find in my research, reject this theory. And I come from a standpoint, both Shelby and I have experience in talking about authorship of, we talk about authorship of biblical texts, which we have no named author in the text, really. Like we can't look in the text. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't.
A few of the books, but most of them they don't.
Yes, they don't name, and it's hard. Like we have to talk about who wrote this, and we have to take that kind of critical lens. Shakespeare's plays were written by one person, and I think from reading the few that I have and looking at the style, the fact that all of his plays were in iambic pentameter, like that kind of consistency in writing style. So it's either Shakespeare wrote all of them or he wrote none of them. There's not a like, oh, he wrote some but not all, which is a more common like thing of like, oh, he didn't really write all of these, he wrote some of these, like the Pauline epistles, like there are things like that, and we can see the differences in writing style or the differences in like things that they're talking about.
Yeah, I was going to add, like, in the biblical texts, when we're looking at, like, the scholarship of the biggest controversy and biggest discussion about this in the Bible is over all of the letters in the New Testament, the epistles, and some of them are written by Paul, some of them aren't. There are some that claim to be written by Paul that are probably actually written by Paul's disciples because they wanted, like, his name to be attached, and they would give it more weight. Yeah, the esteem. That's perfect. And you can literally look at the words that Paul uses when he's writing aren't used anywhere else in the Bible, at least not with any kind of frequency that he uses. And so when you're looking at something that we know he wrote, like Romans or Philippians, and compare it to something that's more disputed, like Hebrews, which I do not believe Paul wrote Hebrews, it's like, okay, well, the language is completely different. Shakespeare is not like that.
No, it is very consistent.
Very consistent. So to me, this conspiracy theory, the first brick is Shakespeare had to have written, whoever wrote these plays, as you said, either wrote all of them or none of them. And I feel like with somebody like Shakespeare, who became famous for his plays, that he would have been found out in the time period. If it was this prolific, that he lied about everything, I feel like he would have been found out on two different fronts. Because so there's like the conspiracy that he stole from his underlings and stole from the people who assisted him or other people in the theater. And then there's the one that he stole from a noble of some kind. So on both of those, I'm like, well, again, there's a motive to be found out. If the noble is, seeing how famous he's getting and how much money he's getting, they would want that. They would be jealous. And same for the person, the underling.
Right. And it comes down to the point of like, it has to be one person. Like, it can't be...
Like, this is not a tag team situation.
No. And maybe, like, I think it's important to note that, like, I'm going to use TV as an example. There is a writer's room that all pitch ideas and all contributed. But if you look at episodes of TV, there is one or two writers that get the writing credit on an episode.
I mean, yeah, but also look at, like, the funniest episodes of The Office are all written by Mindy Kaling. Every single one. The top 10 Office episodes, they're all by her. Go look it up. So, I mean, at some point, writers have a voice. And that's something we talk about a lot in my line of work. Like, you have to develop your own voice as a writer. That's why AI is never going to completely replace writing, because it can't develop its own voice in that way. And you don't develop a voice as distinct as Shakespeare's by stealing somebody else's work. It just doesn't happen.
Right. And like, you can't just... It would have been... I agree. It would have been found out. I think that it is an interesting theory, but one that doesn't really hold weight when you put it up against the lens of actual critique and questioning of authorship that academics use when they're looking at texts from a long time ago. And like, even like thinking about, it's important to note, like, we don't have the original manuscript that Shakespeare wrote down for his plays. At least I don't think we do.
I don't know.
But like, that's something like, that's something we run into a lot. Like, we have copies of things. We don't have the originals. We have copies of things.
Right. But we're also talking about 500 years. And I know that people out there listening are like, yeah, that's why why do you think that some of the rumors, like, I think he wouldn't have been found out. But I think, like, newspapers, that kind of public forum, that still existed back then. Yes, it was new, but, like, the printing press had been around by this point.
For several decades.
By the time he's an adult, yeah. And it's just like that people would have been talking about this if he really was suspected of plagiarizing.
I definitely agree. So that's kind of like all about like Shakespeare's biography, other than like, even though he was critical of the nobility, like they still funded him. Like you don't get a theater program, a theater kind of thing without a kind of the nobility funding it. And part of one of the things that's so genius about Shakespeare is he was able to critique the nobility, but not in such a way that they felt targeted. Like they could easily write this off about like, oh, this isn't about the Tudors, this is about the other house or whatever, like, or this is about, you know, the Duke of whatever instead of me, you know. And so it was, they blamed each other instead of turning and be like, well, what are you doing?
Well, and I think also a lot of his stories are, yes, like the nobility does things that are wrong, but like they're not always the blame for everything. Or if they are, it's a little bit more complex than that. And it's not just like nobility bad, we hate you, always, boo. Like it's a more complex criticism.
Yes, very much so. And it also goes to show with Shakespeare, kind of in the points of here, of that theater was always like open to the everyday people. But it's really with Shakespeare that he starts writing to those people. Like it's something like, oh, we go and experience this to like have a taste of what the nobility experience. Okay, but now Shakespeare is writing to us. This is written for us.
And I do also think, you know, that's part of his genius, that he can speak to both the common everyday laborer and the nobility and have them all want to attend the play.
It's an amazing thing when you can write something so specific yet so universal that it applies, that everyone sees something they get or value out of it.
Right. Not everybody can do that.
But I think that's worth noting for his description, that he makes things accessible to the everyday. So he was described as observant, perceptive, knowledgeable, intelligent, compassionate, and ambitious. Those are kind of his things. We know so little about Shakespeare outside of his works. And so this next section is based on my research and my conclusions drawn from my own readings of his plays and my own kind of understanding of the morals and themes that come in there. So these are the things that I think he valued based on the works that he wrote. I think he very much wanted people to understand that hate and hatefulness breeds tragedy. Look at Romeo and Juliet. And I think that like there is a lesson in there about young teen love and not being taken seriously. But the tragedy is that their families hated each other so much that they felt like this was their only option. And the like happiness or hopeful things is that the Capulets and Montagues reconcile at the end. Like this death, this tragedy brings them in to be reconciled because their feud and their hate created this tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting though how like these things are, this is not solely a perspective in writing. Like this has really happened. Like I think about the Hatfields and the McCoys in Appalachia. Like they have just this feud going back exactly the same as in Romeo and Juliet. And it like that's a real historical people. So like this is not just, oh, he just made this up. It's just some story. It's not.
No, he like really got in this. And like Macbeth, like fear of losing power will destroy you. I mean, that is a very like
relevant.
Or like the craving of power will corrupt you. We're going to talk about assassins. I mean, let's talk about that. But be true to who you are. Like that's in Midsummer Night, Twelfth Night, these other things. He writes tons of plays where people are either forced to be something they're not and have to discover their inherent value, or they are fighting for their worth in society and feel they need to change themselves to do that, like with Twelfth Night. Which, if you're unfamiliar with Twelfth Night, you probably have seen it, especially if you are a 2000s, 2010s rom-com movie fan. She's the Man is actually a retelling of Twelfth Night in that the two main characters, the siblings, even have the same names as the characters.
Well, and there's a lot from that time period too. Like 10 Things I Hate About You is the Taming of the Shrew retelling, and the main character's name is Cat Stratford, and Shakespeare's from Avon upon Stratford.
Right.
So.
Like there's a lot of that, and like we retell his stories a lot. One of the most famous ones, I think, is that The Lion King is,
literally Hamlet, like
yes,
beat for beat, and also West Side Story is Romeo and Juliet.
Yes, and like Bernstein, who wrote West Side Story, like they went to do that. They wrote that as a retelling of that story. It wasn't like, oh, this is a coincidence and we have similar themes. No, this was meant to be a retelling. Love is a powerful force and is a driving force for everything. Read the sonnets. They're all about love. And love is a central theme across. I mean, Midsummer Night, like Dream, is all about love. Love is at a central point in there. Don't run from your responsibilities. Take accountability. And I would say that both Macbeth and Hamlet fall into this kind of thing of that. Like both of them run from their responsibilities. Both of them don't want to take accountable. Hamlet not taking accountable for holding his uncle accountable and himself accountable, and then Macbeth not holding the actions of his wife accountable and not holding himself accountable for allowing those things. And then the corruption of the nobility is all over that. And so that's really all I have. If you have some thoughts to share before we go to the mid-break, otherwise I think we're ready for the mid-break.
All right, well, let's head over there.
Love espresso, drip coffee, and cold brew? With the Ninja Luxe Cafe, if you can crave it, you can brew it. Espresso, balanced. Drip coffee, rich. Cold brew in a flash. With Barista Assist technology, you brew with no stress and no guesswork and make perfect silky microfoam hands-free from dairy or plant-based milks. Shop the Ninja Luxe Cafe at ninjakitchen.com.
You set the table, put on a playlist, even made the lasagna from scratch. And now you're wearing it. OxyClean Max Force Spray tackles tough, set-in stains the first time. Adulting is hard. Fighting stains shouldn't be. OxyClean Max Force. It's not clean unless it's OxyClean.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso Virtuo Coffee Machines. Ready to enjoy the bold flavors of barista-quality Nespresso iced coffee at home? Simply fill a glass with ice and press the brew button on your Virtuo Pop machine to enjoy rich double espressos roasted to stand up even when chilled. Refreshingly bold iced coffee. Refreshingly easy to make at home. Visit Nespresso.com to shop now.
Ma cos'è? Shoot! Shoot a flying demon!
Quite a carriage you got there. Where did you buy it, if you don't mind me asking?
Ask all you want, Freddy. You'll never get an answer.
Damn it all. Was it my eyebrows?
Yes, and your face, voice, and body.
What have you done? We used them. They were not ready for firing. You could have gotten us all killed. Let me see. His breath is more fatal than our cannons. Only when you two fools are shooting them. There, try it.
All right. Hello and welcome to the middle of the show. This is where we talk about all the things that have to do with the lore cast and not the lore of Assassin's Creed. So the first thing that we do every single week is thank all of our amazing patrons. Thank you all so much. We greatly appreciate you. And you help us keep making the show. And also you get some awesome merch rewards just for being part of our group, just for supporting us. And I will have you know, Merch is going out very, very, very soon for the month of April. So if you are on the fence about joining the Patreon, you better hop to it because you might miss this month's merch drop if you don't. And you can join us at patreon.com/ACLorecast. And if you join, you'll get a shout out on the show. Now, the next best way to support us, if you can't support us financially, is to leave us a rating or a review. And we do have one today that comes from Stephen C., who commented on the Richard the Lionheart episode. And he said, "Fantastic show, as always. The game, Assassin's Creed Shadows, looks great so far, and AC even helped me become a voice actor. I will say there are some points where the voice acting seems off or is lacking a little, but overall, Shadows seems fantastic so far. Keep up the good work on the pod, and I hope to hear y'all's opinions on the game." Thank you so much, Stephen C., for that awesome review. You don't worry at all. You will definitely hear our opinions on Shadows. Maybe not in the next couple weeks, but maybe in the next couple months once I finish it. Austin will probably want to do a second playthrough before we really break it down. So it'll be a little bit, but don't worry, it is coming, and you can always listen to our first reactions episode with the patrons. So definitely check that out. And now the next thing that I have to tell you about, which is the last thing, is our Discord server. We've got a great group of people hanging out over there on Discord. And if you want to come and talk about Assassin's Creed, talk about Shadows, how much you enjoyed it, any of those kinds of things, or if you're just a gamer who likes all kinds of games, then our Discord server is a place for you. And we'd love to have you. And you can find the link to join us in the episode description. And with that, I think we are ready to get back into Shakespeare and his involvement in Assassin's Creed.
What does every USAA member have in common? Family. We're one big family who supports the military community and their eligible families. And if you, your parent, or spouse served, you could join our family and save big on auto insurance. Visit USAA.com/join today to check your eligibility. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
Whether it's a movie night or just midday, Skinny Pop is a salty snack that keeps on giving. Made with just 3 simple ingredients for an irresistibly delicious taste and a large serving size that lasts. Deliciously popped, perfectly salted. Skinny Pop, popular for a reason. Shop Skinny Pop now.
Eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Ebglyss. After an initial dosing phase, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin at 16 weeks. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
Malaka! But that madman, the self-proclaimed Bishop of the Ruins, is our biggest critic. He calls our playing the devil's bagpipes.
I will sleep with anyone as long as they agree to be executed in the morning.
Like Xantivis.
He was well satisfied with his bargain. Who is this toothsome fellow?
My queen, this is,
Well?
It is a generous offer, but I've already pledged my life to this woman.
Aya, you have chosen well.
All right. So, yeah, we're going to talk about Assassin's Creed involvement, which, sorry, there is none. Shakespeare does not appear in any of the games or any of the media. There's no speculation of his involvement. Like, we don't have database entries or even, like, the glyph entries, like, showing Shakespeare having pieces of Eden or anything like that. Like, there's none of that in Assassin's Creed. is mentioned a lot. There's a mission in Assassin's Creed Syndicate that's called Much to Do About Nothing, which is a Shakespearean play. Apparently, Shelby and I looked this up. The Globe Theater is a landmark in Assassin's Creed Syndicate, but we had trouble finding like where it was.
Well, because I think that it had either, I don't remember if it burns down or it gets destroyed or whatever, but I think by the time of Syndicate it's not standing anymore because it got rebuilt in like the 80s or something, the 1980s. So I think it's not like an actual building in Syndicate. I think there's like some kind of a plaque or something.
Right, or maybe a database entry where they're like, hey, this is where the Globe Theater was.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact situation, and like I don't have a save file in that game to go and look, but I'm pretty sure there's something there, but like it's not the actual building.
Right. That makes sense. In a note left on the modern-day cabin in the Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Sean Hastings makes a joke that Shakespeare had a missed chance to write a history play about King Alfred of Wessex's campaign against the invading Vikings, which I think is fair. I think it had a lot of drama to be in there.
I mean, we've got The Last Kingdom now, so we've got it. But I agree, it would be a great subject.
Right, and I think that with Richard's history, or with Shakespeare's like history plays, he's really focused on like quote unquote more recent history than he is like pre-establishment of England history. And then lastly, just in general, this isn't really an involvement, but AC Unity has major Romeo and Juliet vibes between Arno and Elise. Which is just like, I mean, Romeo and Juliet is probably one of his most famous, and like people know, like if people know a Shakespeare play, that's probably what they think of first, just because it's such a classic story and it's been retold several times. And, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio was Romeo. And
I also do think it's one of his worst plays, though. My personal opinion
of Shakespeare's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Macbeth.
Yeah.
And I really like Twelfth Night. But it also, like, you've had like some really big famous actors that you know have done huge Shakespearean roles. Like Jude Law was Hamlet.
Oh, yeah.
Like just big kind of things like that. Like
True.
It is in acting sometimes in these circles, it is a mark of honor, like to be a Shakespearean actor, to be a person who acts in the Shakespearean roles.
Well, it's also very difficult to act in these roles at this point because they've been done so many times, because people are so familiar with the stories, to bring anything new or fresh to it, like, but not changing it, you know, it's a hard line to walk.
In college, they did Macbeth one time, and it was actually a really interesting retelling because they did it like motorbike gang style, which I thought was really interesting. So like
when you were in college?
Yeah, it was like right before you had transferred over there.
I was like, where was I? I don't remember.
But it was really cool because like all of their like weapons were like lawnmower blades and things like that. It was really cool.
But anyway,
we'll move on. So that's really like he has no involvement. So I guess I'm opening the floor here of assassin or Templar.
Well, I mean, I think that this is a person who would have to be familiar with, like we've said, in the conspiracy where it's all or nothing. I think this is an all or nothing kind of situation where like he has to either know of both sides or he has to know nothing. It doesn't make sense to me that he would only be familiar with one group. You know what I mean? I feel like in the theater, there's so much drama. There's a lot of secrecy. There's a lot of like connections and intrigue, political maneuvering with the theater scene, especially in this time. And so I just feel like the theater specifically is a prime opportunity to be infiltrated by both assassins and Templars. And I don't necessarily think that he would be an assassin or a Templar. I don't think he would be like a full-fledged member, but I do think that he is going to side more ideologically with the assassins. And I know we talked about this outside of the episode a little bit, but like we're never going to see this time period in an Assassin's Creed game. We've had multiple games in England, and there's just other places that we're going to have to go. But if we did, I think that Shakespeare would play a role very similar to the role of Charles Darwin in Syndicate, where like you're a quest giver, you've got information, you have things that you need to tell the protagonist, but you're not necessarily a fully fledged member of the Assassins, but you know who they are. And you might even be an ally in some ways. Maybe you don't agree with everything they do, but we've got something happening that makes you want to side with us for right now.
Right. And I think they would more like the way of Shakespeare's popularity. I could see him as an easy target for the Templars to want to control and extort and make him tell the narratives and stories that they want to tell. So I could see something along the lines of either rescuing Shakespeare or maybe even rescuing his wife, who by the name is Anne Hathaway.
Okay. Talk about conspiracy theories. If you're listening, if you've made it this far into the episode, pause the episode and go look up Anne Hathaway, ex-husband Shakespeare. They look identical, and she was born, I want to say she was born on his wife's, the anniversary of her death, I think. So there are a lot of little coincidences with her and Shakespeare that I'm like, there's something going on there. Like, that's fishy. But anyways, back to the assassin.
But yeah, actual name spelled exactly the same way. That was his wife. Maybe we have to rescue his family, because one thing we do know about Shakespeare that I didn't get into is he loved his family. He loved his wife and he loved his children a lot. And I think that having to rescue them to like free Shakespeare from having to be manipulated by the Templars would be really cool. It'd also be cool, I think, to like do a stage play of either Hamlet or Macbeth, and like maybe the actor who's playing Macbeth or Hamlet's uncle, whose name I can't remember, like, and you have to have like the fight, and you as an assassin pose as one of the actors so that you can kill the target.
Like you actually kill him.
Yeah.
Or like even like, okay, we're gonna sneak notes in the playbill. Like there's some kind of similar to in Assassin's Creed 3 with like Haytham in the theater and stuff, like scenes like that would just make sense to me to be in a game involving Shakespeare.
Yes, I definitely 100% believe in that. And like, we've already run through the like rafters of a theater in an assassination attempt with Haytham, that it would be a fun mission if we did it.
I agree. And I do think there's ways that they could make it fresh and new and unique. But I really like your idea of like, okay, we've made it into the play itself, and we have to kill someone during the play and make it also look like we're acting. I think that would be really fun. But, I can also see, lots of different things happening, the crowds in the theater, especially the groups of the regular everyday people, the peasants, like they got rowdy.
They
like
did.
they got wild and crazy. So, anything could happen there.
Right. And like, I think, we make fun of like of like people throwing rotten food on the stage or whatever. Even the website Rotten Tomatoes like comes from this idea that these commoners would bring rotten food to these plays to throw at the actors
if they sucked.
Because it was like, oh, eat this or catch whatever disease is in this and die.
Because you've made us waste our money and time.
Yeah.
We should kind of bring that back.
Yeah. I think people would be more conscientious about their media presentation than if that was the case.
Yeah. Well, and I also do think, just going back to the assassin side of things, I also think that Shakespeare would be a great person to be a spy for the assassins, because he's in all of these, upper class areas with the royalty and the nobility. And so like, if there's somebody that's like gonna have to spread some gossip or like get a message to somebody, or even just to like hey, we need you to proliferate this idea about, that's anti-Templar, whatever it may be. Shakespeare is the perfect person for that because he has access to so many different rooms with so many different kinds of people in them, from the nobility and the royalty. Like, he had access to both, and that even in and of itself is a very wide-ranging thing, from just regular nobility all the way up to the queen and the actual ruler of the country to literal everyday peasants. Like, there are very few people in this time period who would have had access to that many different kinds of people.
Which I agree with you, and is also another point in that he would have been a prime target for the Templars.
I agree. I just don't think it would have worked.
No, I don't. I think he is not about control or even hiding things from people. Like, I don't think he's about that, and I don't think he has such a low view of humanity that the Templars do.
Well, and I also think that, like, so many of the sonnets are, like, about not hiding your love anymore. And Romeo and Juliet is too. And that just wouldn't make sense. Like, that kind of level of secrecy, it just doesn't. Shakespeare being anything with the Templars does not make sense to me.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with all of those kind of things, and I think that he is definitely probably an ally to the assassin at most, but I agree with you that he is not a member of either group.
Yeah. Well, if we're ready to wrap up, I just want to say thank you for doing all the research. This has been a really fun episode. This is kind of like our first non-politician that we've done in a long time. I know we've had a few where we talked about, like, Oppenheimer, and we talked about Harriet Tubman, but I feel like we haven't done a lot of artsy-fartsy people. So this has been a good change of pace. Maybe we'll do a few more. But thank you, Austin, for doing the research, as always. And thank you for listening to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. You can find us on Twitter at AC Lorecast.
If you have any lore questions or topics to unpack, join our Cups Podcasting and More Discord server. It's the best place on the internet. You can also support us financially through our Patreon. Find us on patreon.com/Assassin's Creed Lorecast. The Assassin's Creed Lorecast is part of the Robots Radio Network. For more information about the Robots Radio Network, join the Discord server via the link in our episode's description.
If you enjoyed the show or learned something new today, please subscribe, leave us a review, and join the Patreon. And if you enjoyed our intro and outro music, make sure you give a big thank you to Pipeman Studios. Thank you, Pipeman. Thanks again for listening to the Assassin's Creed Lorecast. And always remember, Assassins, stay in the shadows to serve the light.
This episode is brought to you by FX's Alien Earth, the official podcast. Each week, host Adam Rogers is joined by guests, including the show's creator, cast, and crew, in this exclusive companion podcast. They will explore story elements, deep dive into character motivations, and offer an episode-by-episode behind-the-scenes breakdown of each terrifying chapter in this new series. Search FX's Alien Earth wherever you listen to podcasts.
Want to live better? We've got a lot of work to do. Join Chris Hemsworth in National Geographic's new Disney Plus original series, Limitless. Live better now.
I'm diving headfirst into cutting-edge science to uncover 3 powerful secrets to living better right now. The growth that occurs through any challenging experience is really what we seek.
Chris Hemsworth stars in Limitless, Live Better Now. Now streaming on Disney Plus and Hulu.
It's showtime.